Hello, hello. You're listening to Archaeopolitics, a Harry Potter reread podcast focusing on politics in the wizarding world. I'm Adri, one of your hosts, and a recovering English major.
I'm Helene, your other host and producer.
And today, we're going to be delving into the second chapter of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, titled In Memoriam. All right, Helene, this is episode 2 of our last season ever. How are you feeling? How are you holding up?
Oh, it's still a little bit surreal. I mean, you told me this right before we went on air, but we are nearing our 200th episode, which I think is actually a bigger milestone for you than it is for me because I haven't been here the whole time. But that's a big accomplishment.
I mean, obviously, I haven't been here for all 200 episodes. I think I've missed 1 or 2, but yes.
Oh, it's just, 1 or 2. I only did like 198 episodes. NVD.
You know what? I want the listeners to know that I hold myself accountable to very high standards.
Yeah, well, I mean, this podcast is, it's been going on for a while and we're reaching the end of the series, and it's gonna come before we know it. It's gonna be here before we know it. We're gonna be, talking about the last chapter of this book, and we're gonna just, it's gonna be insane.
Since this show started, we fully transitioned from like one political administration to the next. I have transitioned from being just a dog mom to being a human and dog mom. You have transitioned careers.
Mm-hmm.
We've had multiple hosts and guest hosts.
I've transitioned from respecting J.K. Rowling to not respecting J.K. Rowling.
You know what? It was unsaid, but it had to be said. You are correct.
A lot has happened, guys, in these last few years.
A lot has happened. But you know what remains the same, Helene?
What?
My hatred for Ted Cruz.
Yeah, that'll never change. Isn't it nice to know that there's something in this world we can always count on?
Just like the one constant in my life, my hatred for Ted Cruz.
We know he's never going to be redeemed. It's good to know that you can count on his sleaziness another day.
Oh, also another person I can hate forever and not feel bad about is Brett Kavanaugh, who dined went to like a fancy DC dinner, and protesters were gathered outside, and then he had to like leave through the back door because he is afraid of confronting protesters. Oh my God, annoying.
It's like that meme. It's like, oh no. The consequences of my actions. Yeah, I can't remember how it goes, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm glad at least you know what I'm talking about. It's like, oh no, the consequences of my actions. Darn, like finally have to face them.
Well, smaller than that, but like Seth pointed out I had spit up on my shirt today, which by the way, I haven't changed my shirt today. I'm gross like that. And I was like, oh no, it's the consequences of my own actions.
What do you mean? Like feeding your baby?
Or like the baby is the consequence of my actions.
I see. Even larger. We're backing up even more. I see. All right.
Yeah. It's just like in a general sense, the consequences of my own actions. Just stupid Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
You can go drink beer in his basement for all I care.
Dude, just like order in. Like that's what I do.
There's no constitutional right to dinner. Like,
no.
Fuck you.
You don't want to deal with the consequences of leaving your house and seeing protesters who are upset about you taking away their basic human rights. Well, I don't know. DoorDash exists.
I don't know, man. Maybe you could have died in a different state.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Why did he get hungry? He shouldn't have gotten hungry anyway.
Yeah. He shouldn't have had to eat.
Exactly. Why does he have to eat? There's perfectly good food at home. There you go. Anyway, let's continue. Another bit of news. Steve Bannon, who is facing jail and fines, is now agreeing to testify to the January 6th panel.
Wow.
And this is like days before he was going to start trial for contempt of Congress. So he was really staring down the barrel, and he was like, "Shit, they're not backing down."
But aren't they not getting rid of his contempt charge?
Well, I'm not sure. This just came in today, this afternoon, so no one's really sure what's going to happen.
Okay.
What they did say, sources for the January 6th committee said was that he was not going to be asked to testify in prime time or like in like the hearings. Okay. It was going to be a closed door thing, like everyone else has been, like most people has been, because they're not interested in a witness who's going to try to kind of like intimidate and kind of make a show up and a spectacle out of the hearings.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. However, are they going to show footage of his testimony? Mm-hmm. Okay, because
that's the plan.
Well, that's the thing. The only thing that I worry about then is that like all of the Trumpers and stuff are going to be like, oh, they edited it. They changed what he said. Like they're altering the evidence. Like if it's not live. That's like,
even if it's live, they'll find a way to justify it,
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just, it makes it easier for them to pretend that they're faking it.
I think at this point they're so willfully blind that I'm not even that worried about it. Like I am worried. I don't want to like make light of it. But at the same time, I'm like, people are going to believe whatever they want to believe, regardless of the evidence thrown in their face at this point. Because those of us who saw and understood what January 6th meant, honestly, are like even more shocked now when we hear even more details. But we're shocked, 100%. But like not deeply surprised. Two different things. And we're like, oh, well, that tracks. That's exactly what I thought. This is just more information that certifies how criminal these people are. But the people who believe that the election was stolen or whatever are still finding ways to adjust this information to their belief. They'll find a way.
Yeah.
The cognitive dissonance is insane.
Yeah, confirmation bias and all those things.
All the things. So yeah, those are the two big things that I was like, we need to talk about this on the show.
Yeah. There's another. Well, it doesn't matter because we're recording ahead of time. But as of recording right now, there is another hearing tomorrow afternoon at I think it's noon Eastern time. And then there is supposed to be one on Thursday, but I think that's the one that got postponed for the Bannon testimony.
Oh wow, okay.
I think that's what I think. My sister always texts me with updates because I'm pretty sure my sister just watches like MSNBC 24/7, even while and she has it on in the background while she's working, but like on in the background while she's working like means like she's still fully paying attention to it. It's not like she's not paying attention to it. I don't know how she does it, but I get all my January 6th testifying panel things updates from her.
I love it.
Yeah, I would suggest watching them. If I'm not talking to you, Atri, I'm talking to the listeners because I'm sure you watch them. But
I mean, I really try to keep up with them and watch them. Yes.
Yeah, they're really interesting. And even if I have to like watch them after I get off work, like on YouTube or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait until it's live or whatever. They do put the recordings up on YouTube, so that's very helpful.
Yeah, because like when I can watch them live, I will, but a lot of the times it's while I'm working. So, yeah.
Oh, the thing that you do for money, that old thing.
I know, right? Got to get paid. Got to pay those bills. Mo money, mo problems.
But also more resources and better living situation.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. So we've digressed a bit, but Helene, can you walk us back onto what happens in chapter 2 of this book?
Yes. So in memoriam, this is the one where while organizing his trunk and packing for his inevitably very long camping trip that happens later in this book, Harry comes across a eulogy for Dumbledore written by his dear friend Alpheus Doge. I think it's Doge.
That's how I say it.
Yeah. But like later in the chapter, this is getting off topic even before I finish the summary, but later in the chapter, Rita Skeeter calls him Dodgy Doge. And so I was like, maybe it's Dodgy Dodge, like maybe it's Alpheus Dodge.
Oh, okay. Yeah, not sure.
But anyway, Harry then struggles with the realization that he doesn't know as much about Dumbledore as he thought, and how he never tried to get to know him better when he was alive. And then he finds an interview with Rita Skeeter,
of course,
about her upcoming expose, The Life and Lives of Albus Dumbledore, where she attempts to tarnish Dumbledore's name and reputation for book sales. Typical.
Just gross. But I'll get into that later.
Yes.
With her situation. Anyway, thank you for that summary. Let's get on to our segment where we discuss each, what politics we chose and why. Helene, what was your politics for this chapter?
We're bringing it back, guys. I'm going to explain how I was really going between two this chapter. And it was really between legacy and eulogy, or I guess it's more specifically, I was kind of between legacy and tabloids.
Okay. Like tabloid culture?
Yeah, just like a tabloid. Like, I don't know, just like, obviously incorrect news that is
or like exaggerated news.
Yeah. That's like presented as fact. Exactly. Like basically. Yeah. But I went with legacy after kind of noodling around with it a bit. So one of the reasons that I considered not doing legacy this chapter is because the actual technical definition of legacy is like something that's left behind by someone when they die, but like specifically in terms of like physical things like money and property, like a bequest, leaving something in their will. That's like the actual definition of legacy. And so I was like, oh, maybe I should hold on to this one until the chapter where Harry, Ron, and Hermione get the items from Dumbledore's will, because that's like going to be in a couple of chapters. But I don't know. I was actually kind of surprised when I looked at the definition of legacy, because I didn't think it was like physical things. I thought it was, like when someone leaves behind a legacy, I think of like Alexander Hamilton, like in the musical Hamilton, it's all about like leaving behind. He wanted to leave behind an impression on the world. He wanted to leave a legacy. And that was like his main goal. And there's like a whole song about it. And so that's kind of like what I thought about as legacy. So like I define it as just, and something that's left behind by a person when they die. So like, I think of it as impact on the world, or impact on people's lives that they knew, the people in their lives, the impact on them that the deceased leaves behind when they die.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I like that.
Thank you. Obviously, we'll get to how I see it in a chapter, but first I want to hear what yours is.
Well, mine was similar to yours, and I didn't even sneak a peek into the doc before I solidified mine, which is kind of like great minds think alike. Mine is the politics of remembrance, and remembrance is the action of remembering the dead, especially in a ceremony. And I know we've kind of talked about this politic before. I think we have had these exact same politics in one chapter before.
It is very possible. It is very possible.
So I know legacy is a more like broad way of looking at, remembrance, and just remembrance is kind of the act of reflecting on someone who has passed and what they mean to you and what they have, how they have impacted you and the world around, and kind of how you are going to honor their memory. So like that act is what I am thinking about in this chapter.
I kind of see it, I guess, as like legacy comes from the deceased, right? Legacy is like something that the deceased leaves behind, and like remembrance comes from the grieving, the grievers, the people left behind.
So, and also remembrance to me at least is it has more of a finite, time period to
like
where
grieving.
you're not doing like a remembrance 15 years on. You're thinking about a legacy 15 years on.
Yeah.
But you're not doing...
legacy is lasting. Yeah.
Yeah. Remembrance is like that grappling that Harry is doing and the obituaries are doing, and even like Rita Skeeter is doing in her interview. So, sorry. I went into how we see it in the chapter. Here we go.
Yeah, why don't you go first then, since we're already kind of discussing it, and then I'll go to mine.
All right. So my quote for this in this chapter for Remembrance is the following. This really tugged at my heartstrings, and I'm sure it did yours. Mm-hmm. He had never thought to ask Dumbledore about his past. No doubt it would have felt strange, impertinent even, but after it had all been common knowledge that Dumbledore had taken part in that legendary duel with Grindelwald. And Harry had not thought to ask Dumbledore what that had been like, nor about any of his other famous achievements. No, they had always discussed Harry, Harry's past, Harry's future, Harry's plans. And it seemed to Harry now, despite the fact that his future was so dangerous and so uncertain, that he had missed irreplaceable opportunities when he had failed to ask Dumbledore more about himself, even though the only personal question he had ever asked his headmaster was also the only one he suspected that Dumbledore had not answered honestly. And after that, it brings us back to the Mirror of Erised.
Yeah, what he sees in the Mirror of Erised. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
this part definitely impacted me a lot, and actually, we'll come back to it later in the episode. But yes.
Well. Is it going to be like a callback, like we just did to the Mirror of Erised, only within the episode?
Yes, it's going to be an in-app callback. Just wait for it. You have proper warning.
Yeah, no. So obviously, Harry's like grappling with the loss of his mentor, but he's also wanting to honor his memory in some way, and he's now recognizing that he was short-sighted and not seeing his mentor as a full person, because Harry was more preoccupied with the here and now and all like the conspiracy theories, and he thought that his mentor was infallible. Like a lot of us think that people are going to be there forever.
And I think part of it is that he's a kid, like...
Oh, of course. And like that was my second point. My second point, that this is a moment of growth for Harry.
Right.
Like we often don't see the complexities of others until much later in life, and he is being really hard on himself, but also it's a moment of him growing and recognizing like, oh, wait, it's not all about me, even though that is literally the title of the series.
I think it's really, really common for children and adolescents to view the world in relation to themselves, right? Like your parent doesn't become like an actual full-fledged person that's not like hasn't always been your parent until like you're an adult, right? Like, and when you are a kid, you look at an adult and you're like, they're all the same age, they like, it's just like
they're all somehow mysteriously 65.
Right. Exactly. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely not just like a Harry specific, like blind spot, I guess is what I'm saying. But I mean, I was like this when I was his age. 100%.
I think sometimes the biggest mindfuck is like becoming the age of one of your parents where you distinctly remember them at that age. And you're like, oh, they weren't that old. No, because I don't feel that old.
I'm not there yet because my mom was 38 when I was born, so I can't be there yet. But
you will be at some point.
Will be eventually, definitely, and I'm
or
sure
maybe when you like, or is your sister around the age of when you remember your mom at first?
I mean, my sister
Soon
is
she will be.
Yeah, my sister is about the age my mom was when I was born, but I think I was still too young
to remember.
At that age to remember. So yeah.
So maybe in like 5 years or so, you'll be talking to your sister and you'll have like that, oh, oh,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that is not that old, you know?
Yeah. I can see that happening for sure.
Yeah. So it's a fun experience. And
Right.
by fun I mean slightly traumatizing. Yay.
Yeah.
So that was my quote. What was yours?
Right. So for legacy, not surprisingly, my quote is lifted from Alpheus Doge's eulogy, obituary.
Which, by the way, we're getting a call back from me also later in the
Oh,
episode.
okay. Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, file that away, guys. Put it in your pensive. I don't know. um, so my quote is Albus Dumbledore was never proud or vain. He could find something to value in anyone, however apparently insignificant or wretched, and I believe that his early losses endowed him with great humanity and sympathy. I shall miss his friendship more than I can say, but my loss is nothing compared to the wizarding world's. That he was the most inspiring and the best loved of all Hogwarts headmasters cannot be in question. He died as he lived, working always for the greater good, and to his last hour, as willing to stretch out a hand to a small boy with dragonpox as he was on the day that I met him.
I really love that passage.
Um, yeah, I mean, I cried when I read his entire obituary this time, and probably the first time that I read it too. Um, And yeah, I mean, like obviously I couldn't put the entire obituary in the podcast. I couldn't read the
But
whole thing, but
you
I
could
guess
have,
I
and
guess I
I
could
wouldn't have
have.
stopped you.
I guess that's true. But like some other parts that aren't in this specific passage, that like speak to his legacy are, like the actual the like things that like literally are written down in history books, like the him discovering the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and all the work he did with Nicholas Flamel, and him being the supreme whatever of the Wizengamot, not Mugwump because that's the International Confederation of Wizards, but he was like the head of the Wizengamot, and he did stuff there, and like obviously all the students' lives that he impacted, both as a teacher and as headmaster at Hogwarts. The portrait that's left in his office of him is part of his legacy. There's just parts of Dumbledore that will be around long after he is, in his grave, and his body is not on the earth anymore. So he did a good job, you know, making a difference in the world.
I think what I love about your quote, I mean, you could have read the entire obituary. I told you I wouldn't have
Yeah.
stopped you. I love every single sentence of it.
Yeah.
But I think that the quote you chose to me is so important because it really highlights at the end of the day, like what is most important about his legacy, which is his character and not just his achievements.
Yeah. Like the kindness he showed to
So
people.
so who he was as the center of his being instead of what he produced. Because a lot of times we get bogged down with like, oh, but look at all this person's achievements, even though they're a piece of crap, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, can we separate the art from the artist if we like the art? That kind of conversation, right?
Yeah.
And like, sure, I understand there's a need for those conversations, but at the end of the day, like, to me, legacy is more about here's, the substance of this person's character over what they achieved. Because sometimes achievements of terrible people are done by, people abusing other people, taking away things from other people, thwarting the advances of other people. So to have someone who's genuinely kind and honest and champions, people, right? Who also happens to have these achievements, then that is someone that you're like, yeah, I can get behind that person.
Yeah. Just like reading the entire obituary, it just kept on making me think like, if I can have, someone remember me like this, just one person who remembers me in this way after I die, like that'll be an accomplishment, right? Like this is just
That's enough. Yes.
right. And I'm and this might sound really stupid or cheesy, but like honestly, the entire thing really did remind me of my dad. Because he's actually very similar in a lot of ways. And like the obituary sounded like something that could have also been written for Henry. So Henry Carp, I love him. I love that man. So yeah, it was really touching, and I love Dumbledore. Y'all know that. So it was a lot for me.
I mean, every time I read it, I love it even more, to have that impact on just one person, like you say, would be a great achievement. Imagine the impact that he had on entire student populace alone.
Yeah.
Generations and upon generations of wizards and witches. Right. So that's a big deal. But enough about that, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk about the character that I saw in this chapter as messing about in the politics of remembrance. And it might be quite the shocker for listeners because it's Rita Skeeter.
Yeah. Wait till we get to mine. So yeah, go ahead.
So Rita Skeeter is cashing in on her opportunity for the politics of remembrance. She's seeing an opportunity. She's seeing a market, and she's diving headfirst into that market. She's like, I'm going to be first to colonize this, thirst for more info on Dumbledore and, his, probably oft publicized accident / murder. Right. We don't know if he fell or he was pushed. Who knows the true story? And the way that she was written to say, in the interview, oh, I know I'm only going to be just one of many writers who is going to be looking into Albus Dumbledore and stuff. It just really, really, really reminded me of every kind of grifter biographer. Not all biographers are grifters, of course, but there are some of them out there that are definitely grifters who are looking for salacious tidbits to promote their books, and that just really irritated me.
Publicity stunts and
just the whole publicity stunt, and the way that she was described in the article was very much of a fluff piece. Her smell is much softer than it appears in her whatever. Yeah. Oh, she's not as deranged as her portraits make her out to be,
Yeah, they want to make it seem like she's an actual viable source of information.
Just a puff piece for Rita Skeeter. Not a fan of it, but yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
So, I mean, the politics of legacy, I mean, the obvious choice is Dumbledore, yes. But because obviously this whole chapter is us remembering Dumbledore's legacy and illustrating it. But I also said Rita Skeeter because Rita illustrates that the larger and more impactful a legacy that someone leaves behind is, the more people are going to want to rip it apart and uncover some unsightly truth in an attempt to bring these really larger than life people back down to their own level so that they can feel better about themselves.
Ugh,
and
gross.
Also sell books.
Yeah, so I guess we both ended up in the same place, and I again wrote this without looking at yours, and then I saw yours said Dumbledore and I didn't keep on reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I now hate myself for this.
No, I mean, it's kind of funny that because it's true. The obvious answer is so easy, right? I could just be yeah, Dumbledore, because, he left a legacy.
Yeah, but who's really profiteering out of all this? It's Rita.
The interesting angle is to talk about Rita and how people like her will take a legacy and do whatever they can, not only to profit off of it, but to bring that person down a peg because they can't fight back because they're dead now, like they can't defend themselves. It's the easiest thing to attack someone who can't defend themselves, and that person is dead. So obviously, like, the people who care about them are going to defend them, but like no one knows 100% the truth because the one person that does is no longer around to like clarify, you know?
Yeah. Also, remember how I said like Remembrance has like a time limit because it's like tied to grief and all that, like we talked about.
Yeah.
So does like this opportunity that she has to like get in on the market and corner the market on Dumbledore's like biography, like, oh yes, now I have to be the first one out, because if not, she would have taken more than 4 months 4 weeks, to pen this.
Right. Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, there's also a time limit associated with gaining notoriety through this work.
Exactly.
Cha-ching, cha-ching. She's just cashing in. All right, Helene. So now we are to our newest segment, which is how we see each other's politics in the series, looking back in a retrospective, because this is the last book.
Yeah.
So, Helene, my politic was the politic of Remembrance. How do you see this in the series?
Honestly, I think we had it kind of easy this chapter, both of us really, because this whole entire series is really about grief. It's about processing grief and like losing important people in our life and how we like recover from that. So I would say like a big thing for Remembrance is the sixth book with Harry going through losing Sirius in the book before, and the fourth book with Harry dealing with Cedric and the loss and his loss, and remembering him and the person he was, and not and like even in the small places in the series too, with like the ghosts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just like remembering their lives and telling their stories even after death. Yeah, I would say those big moments of those big losses.
Okay. I think for your politic, Helene, which was the politics of legacy, again, also a book about legacies and their impact, but mostly I think about the legacy of Lily and James Potter and how that legacy is the one that is propelling the entire story forward. Because without Lily sacrificing herself for her son, we would not have a boy who lived, So we wouldn't have had basically the 7 books, right? Like,
right.
Oh yes, and a baby was brutally murdered. That was going to be it. And then what of that? So we also have like the legacy of the Order of the Phoenix and like how that gets brought back and like all these other things, but mostly it's the legacy of James and Lily Potter that is propelling the entire narrative arc of the series.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was it for that. So we're going to go to our next segment, which is the one, the only, the Ted Cruz and the chocolate. I mean, the Dementors and chocolate. So what was the thing that you couldn't stand in the chapter?
I mean, I Rita in general, but like if I had to pick a specific Rita thing, I would say her obvious attempts to discredit not only Dumbledore but those around him and like those who would speak highly of him, and trying to expose blatant lies and inaccuracies in her book. It's basically like her comparing Dumbledore to like, and this wasn't said as much as it was just like implied, comparing Dumbledore to say Gilderoy Lockhart.
Ugh, gross. Yes. When she said that 8 uses of dragon's blood was already discovered or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just like her just basically trying to say like a lot of people are like other people probably did the things that he said he did. Yeah, specifically the dragon's blood for sure. But yeah, it was just her trying to discredit all these people, not only Dumbledore himself, but like Alpheus by calling him Dodgy Dodge or Dodgy Doge or whatever, however you say it. And, saying that she's really close with Harry after their interview from book 4, or was it book 5? I think it's book 5. And, like, just completely lying about being like close with Harry. And like, if I were Harry, like Harry actually reacts better to that than I would have. Like, if I were him and I read that, I would just like get so fucking pissed. Because, like,
yeah, I think maybe he has bigger things to think about right now. But if he hadn't,
but like, if I were him, I'd literally just like call up the fucking Daily Prophet and be like, I need you to print a fucking retraction. Like, that is blatant lies. I will give you a statement. Like, I do not like this woman. I do not endorse this woman. Like, as what I would do if I were him.
I mean, I wouldn't blame you for that either.
Right. What about you? What was your Dementor this chapter?
Among many, just Harry being so sad about losing someone he admired and having them to read the interview that Rita gave just irked me, like, just kind of like adding salt to the wound type of thing. And also, this is a small thing, but it also made me very sad. It was the fact that Hedwig was mad at him, and then we know what happens to Hedwig. So,
yeah, it happens soon too.
I know, just kind of like that unresolved, like, but the last thing Hedwig was mad, at Harry.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not ready for that.
No, I'm not ready for that ever.
Because I love Hedwig, and you know what else I love? Chocolate.
Fantastic. Great transition. A++ all around.
Yes. And so the chocolate is what we hold dear in the chapter. And my chocolate this week is actually kind of like somewhat sad, but and this is where we rewind back to that, where I said we were going to have an inept callback. This is that time. Because like your whole quote was about Harry realizing that he never actually knew Dumbledore. Like, he never asked him personal questions. He never got the chance to he never took the chance to get to know him as like a person outside of like headmaster of Hogwarts and all of those things. And so like my chocolate is actually just Harry being a self-aware king and like acknowledging that and knowing that and realizing that, and like wanting to do better. Because I think it's easy to like blame it on them, right? Like the person's not around anymore, right? Like, he could have just been like, he'd be like, oh, Dumbledore never told me about himself. Like, that's his problem. Like, why didn't Dumbledore ever tell me about himself? And and instead of like looking at like inward and being like, why did I never ask?
Yeah. You know what? I still think that Dumbledore may not have shared anything with Harry. It's personal.
If they had more time together, I think they definitely would have.
I think that maybe Dumbledore was trying to also keep that distance between like mentor, protege type distance of like kind of like almost like keep it business, but not, let's not overshare here. Also, he probably was like, I can't get him too much more emotionally invested in this child who might die.
That's fair. That's a fair assumption.
Yeah. But just because I don't think Dumbledore would have shared anything doesn't absolve Harry from not having the curiosity. But also, he was a child, so many competing things.
Yeah, just like being able to look at yourself and be like, I messed up and I can't take it back, but I wish I had gotten to know this man that I care about better. Like, good for him for like realizing that and recognizing it.
Look at that. So mine is also the callback in this section.
Yeah.
And we did not plan this.
No.
It is, to me, it was like the entire obituary written by Doge, actually specifically the portion that you called out in your quote.
So our quotes were our chocolates.
That's yes, so each cute. Other's quotes were chocolate.
That's so adorable. Cute. I love it.
We are adorable. Because like I said earlier, people's accomplishments can be the result of abuse of others. It could be the result of theft, like Gilderoy Lockhart's. Like it can be many things, but the only thing you can't forge, right, or falsify is your character, and his character was unimpeachable. So that's what to me is the most lovely part of this chapter.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I feel like yeah, accomplishments are like written down, and they might be remembered by more people because like they're kind of documented more. But I mean, I think that the like how someone who you loved and someone who loved you in life like looks back and like remembers you, like how they think of you, whether they think of you fondly or not at all. I think like that is obviously like the more important thing to leave behind. Like that's more impactful, I think, than an accomplishment.
Yeah,
in my mind. But I mean, I'm
yeah.
a Hufflepuff, so what can I say?
And you would be right in my eyes anyway. Well, last week we had the following question. If you were Voldemort, would you trust Snape over Death Eaters, over other Death Eaters, and why? And we are going to read the answers out on our next episode because we are recording this early this week.
Yeah.
So we haven't had a chance to gather all your beautiful answers yet.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean we don't have another question for you in the meantime.
Oh, next episode, we're going to read answers to 2 questions. So it's going to be exciting. This episode, our question is the following. If Rita Skeeter wrote a biography about you, what would the title be? And I can't wait to hear everyone's titles.
Yeah, and like, come on, don't be like the person who's just like the life and lives of me, or the life and lives of Adri. Like, no, like that's, you gotta be imaginative,
Creative.
That's the word. You can't think of a word. Obviously, mine is gonna be the words that Helene could not remember, and it's gonna be like a 9,000 page book
of just words.
Of just words that Helene could not remember.
And it's important as you think about these titles is that, be aggressive, be passive aggressive, because that's who Rita Skeeter really is.
Yeah, it's true.
Also, Helene, that is a homework for you and I. We have to come up with our own titles because we got to share them next time. Sorry, but we do.
Heck yeah. I'm excited.
I can't wait. I'm going to have to workshop mine. I'm going to be thinking about this all week.
Oh, and you know what would be fun? Here's a bonus question. If Rita Skeeter wrote a biography about Acchiopolitics, just like the podcast, what would it be? Because, I mean, I don't know, Adri, if you're still planning on ever making another sticker in your life, but we could make stickers with a book cover and like the name of our podcast biography by Rita Skeeter.
I feel like that would be the final sticker, which would be a great time for us to talk about what's going to happen to Patreon. So starting August 1st, we will no longer have a Patreon. So that will be closing out. What's going to happen to you patrons out there who are like, where's the rest of my stickers, Bish? They're coming. They're just going to come in a few months. And you're going to get a bunch load of stickers for every month that you've paid and you have not received a sticker. I apologize. I know I've said this to Helene off mic. I might have mentioned it in the podcast. But I was suffering and still am a little bit suffering from prepartum and postpartum depression. And I know sometimes it doesn't sound like it, but that is just what it means is that it makes coping with life a little bit harder. And some things I had to let go. One of those things was Patreon and making stickers. So to make it easier on myself is in this transition into being a mom of a human child plus 3 chihuahuas, I thought about that hard and fast, and I thought, okay, so what is the best thing for the podcast, the listeners, and me? So the answer was, okay, I will fund this show on my own, and that's okay because I can afford it at this point in my life, and also, send out the stuff that people have already paid for. So that's still going to happen. And maybe in the future, we will make stickers accessible through an Etsy store. But that is TBD.
Yeah, let us know if that's something you would be interested in too. Because, I mean, we kind of need to gauge interest even to figure out if it's even something that we can and want to
put some energy and effort. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, and if you think it would be fun to have a sticker that looks like a book cover with a fun Rita Skeeter-esque title about acupolitics.
I'm sorry, but that is the July sticker for 2022.
Submit your ideas. It could be great. So let us know.
It's not it could be great. It's going to be great.
This is true. It will be.
It's the best thing this is like our swan song in terms of Patreon stickers.
Yes. I'm excited.
All right. So that being said, it's time for our cool down section.
Yeah.
Because it's time for the media we've been consuming.
Yes. I'll get mine out of the way because it's not super exciting. So when I started One Tree Hill, which I told you last podcast that was what I was watching, I did not realize that it was a 9-season commitment
that you are going to bravely weather.
I started it. I can't stop it now. So it's 9 seasons, like full 22 to 24 episodes, seasons, 45-minute episodes, like the whole shebang. It's a big deal. So do not be surprised if like many weeks in a row that happens to be my answer, because how else are you supposed to finish a 9-season show? You got to watch it and nothing else.
You can take a little break here and there.
Yeah.
Like no one's making you like.
Yeah, when new things
do this
come
on
out,
a schedule.
Yes, when new things come out that I'm, interested in, or whatever, following at the time. Of course, I will watch those. But as of right now, it's still One Tree Hill. But also, and I'm sure I've said this on the podcast in the past too, because this is a throwback. I have picked up the game Stardew Valley again on my Nintendo Switch and started a new save file. And I am re-obsessed with that, which happens every few months, really, honestly. I guess like every 6 months to a year, I feel like I get re-obsessed with Stardew Valley. So that's where I'm at. I'm watching One Tree Hill while playing Stardew Valley on my Switch. That's what I've been doing when I'm not working.
I feel that way about Animal Crossing the way you do about Stardew Valley.
Really? Yeah, I
get like re-obsessed.
I haven't gotten re-obsessed with Animal Crossing in a long time, but I can see it's very similar, I think.
Yeah, like especially because you get updates,
Yeah.
So then you're like, oh, new content, or oh, new things to buy, because like really not a lot of like new features.
Yeah.
Can
But the main difference to me between Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing is that Stardew Valley was $12 and Animal Crossing was $60.
Well, very important distinction. Thank you.
Exactly. Yes.
But you still have both, so
I do have both. I'm a hypocrite. What about it?
And what of it?
Exactly. What about you? What have you been consuming?
As we all know, I'm trash, so let's get that out of the way. I am trash. I have been watching season 9, which is the newest season of 90 Day Fiancé. New couples, new problems, same old problems from other couples, recycled problems, but
so not new problems. Not
just
new problems.
New problems to them, maybe, but to us viewers, We're like,
Okay.
oh yes, this reminds me of this other couple who had the similar problem, or similar storyline. Pregnancy scares. The in-laws don't like, the person who came to the US. They're like, what if they're here for just the visa and not my child? Normal things.
Right. Okay. All right.
But there's this one real asshole whose name is Bilal, and he's legitimately like emotionally abusive and manipulative.
Oh, that would be so triggering.
It is very triggering, and my husband and I yell at the screen every time. We're like, oh, this guy. Just like this is how you're intro to the guy. Like we're on episode 13, which is the latest episode, but he is such a fucking jerk. Like he never showed his fiance where he lived or anything because he's like well off. He has like a Mercedes and like a pretty nice house, like not a like McMansion or anything, but like a very nice home. He's a realtor and like all these things. But he like when he video chatted with her, it was like against a white wall, and he would never show her anything. So because he's like, oh no, because she would be after me for my money, blah blah blah. And he's like, Jesus. This is how you're intro to him. He's like, I'm gonna play a prank on my fiance. I'm going to take her to like the house I grew up in and tell her that this is my house. And it's like a rundown property, in a part of the neighborhood where it's like not well kept, like it has like stuff outside where it's like, kind of gross looking. And she's like, at first she's like, I did not expect this coming to America. Like, this is not. And he's like, well, you should be more grateful. And they start like fighting over it, and he makes her feel like shit. And like and he also picks her up in like a white construction van at the airport. Like it's just really like a rickety van.
Creepy. Don't like that.
And like this entire time in confessionals, he's like, this is a great prank. And I'm like, no, you're just a jerk. Like, this is not a great prank.
Oh my goodness.
So he's like trying to pass off something intentionally cruel and deceitful as a prank to be like, look, I'm playful, but like no, my dude, you're actually an abusive man, emotionally abusive man who has control issues. And
yikes.
It just doesn't get better from there.
Jesus. Man.
When that is your highest point, that is a problem.
Yeah. That sounds not a great situation.
Yeah, Seth and I were talking about it the other day. We're like, are we ever even rooting for a couple this season? Because it seems like the answer is no.
I feel like that makes the experience less enjoyable.
It does and it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're just like, these people are terrible.
I don't know. Like, I know that just from experience, like watching shows like The Bachelorette or The Bachelor or whatever, like if there isn't at least one contestant where I'm like, I want them to win. Like if it's like, I literally hate every single one of these contestants and I don't want any of them to end up with this person, like, then I'm like, why am I even watching this?
No. I root for one or two people every season. It's just that I don't want them to be in relationships with the people they're with.
Okay.
I'm like rooting for them not to get married.
You're
like,
rooting for like them to
do it.
Yeah, make like the right decision. I see. Okay.
Yeah. Like there's actually good people in these shows, but most of them, they're just not. Either they're not good for each other or they're just not good people, period. And sometimes it gets a little sad and intense, but also like without conflict, there's no like real watchability, right? So that's also part of it.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
But that's it. That's all I've been doing. Just watching trash because I'm garbage.
I mean, I wouldn't stop saying those things about yourself.
Okay. I am a sophisticated.
I mean, you are
a very sophisticated person with very refined tastes.
Yeah, exactly.
Who also enjoys Cheetos.
Same.
Because who doesn't?
Same on all accounts.
Okay, well, it's because we're soul sisters,
Yeah.
Anyway, that is it for today's episode. Please join us next time as we talk about Chapter 3 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, The Dursleys Departing.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, please take a second to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to be listening to us right now. It helps new listeners discover the podcast and makes us really happy and fuzzy inside. So please do it. Thanks.
Do it! 5 estrellas, por favor. Until then, politics managed. Support this show by going to patreon.com/Occhiopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at Occhiopolitics.com, and we are at Occhiopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@Occhiopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699. And you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Occhiopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.
Hell yeah. So before we get into the Potter stuff, it looks like we have a bit of news that you wanted to discuss today, Adri. Why don't you go ahead and recap that for us?
Oh, are we not doing the witty banter before the news?
Since it's not in the script, I just forgot about it.
Damn it.
It's okay. Maybe we should write something down so I don't forget.
Yeah, Helene, tell me about your day.
Okay. Let's see. Is that a good? I don't know. Is that a good enough transition for?
No, it is not. It is not,
okay.
Friend. It is not. It is not.
I'm like, I don't know.